जैसा कि आप जानते हैं कि पॉलिसी रिसर्चेस यूजुअली बहुत लंबे डॉक्यूमेंट्स होते हैं. समटाइम्स ordinary policy reports are hundreds of pages long, and it's very difficult for policymakers to read all of these long policy reports. So what do? We write policy briefs. Policy briefs are short documents which are made for the policymakers and non-experts to benefit from the findings and recommendations of the policy research. We are going to discuss what policy briefs are and why should you learn as policy students to make policy briefs, and how to present policy briefs to the experts, non-experts, and the decision makers. So what are policy briefs? There are many organizations across the world which develop guidelines to develop policy briefs. Today we are going to discuss International Development Research Centre Canada's guidelines because they are really comprehensive guidelines for developing useful policy briefs for policymakers. Policy briefs are generally the short documents. They have findings, recommendations of the policy research, and they also present lessons of a given policy research. They provide advice to policymakers, and they are developed for general and non-specialist readers. And it's very important for you when you set on developing policy briefs to know your audience, because knowing audience is very important for developing policy briefs. So how to know audience? The number one question is what audience know, what are their needs, interests and concerns, so that you can present information in a better organization and more accessible ways. It means you have to conduct audience research before developing policy briefs for them to make policy briefs more useful for your audience, which is generally the decision makers, but they also include other people who can influence the decisions of the decision makers. Policy briefs generally should stand alone and should address one topic or issue at a moment. They should provide alternatives, recommendations, and suggest alternatives or alternative courses of action on a policy issue. And they should also suggest how recommendations should actually be implemented. They should not be 2 to 4 pages, more than 2 to 4 pages long. They are generally short. Some policy briefs are 1 page long, some policy briefs are 2 page long, but generally they should not be more than 4 pages long. And there is a criteria that they should not increase more than 1500 words. There are 5 components of a policy brief, and we will discuss them one by one. Number one is all policy briefs should have executive summary. What is executive summary? It is generally 3 to 5 sentences to provide overview of the policy brief, and they should be like a lead-in to a popular novel, which provide an insight into the reader's mind, what is going to come in the policy brief, and they should provide gist of the conclusions of the policy study on which the policy briefs are based. This number 2 component of a policy brief is introduction. Number 3 component of the policy brief is approaches and results, and number 4 is conclusion, and number 5 is implications and recommendations. So if a policy brief has these 5 components, the policy brief is going to have a better effect on the decision makers or the readers or your audience.